scientists discovered something unexpected tucked inside your liver cells, tiny sensors nearly identical to the ones on your tongue that pick up sharp, bitter flavors. And this hidden wiring may hold the key to why stubborn midsection fat refuses to leave no matter how clean your plate looks. That pinch of extra weight around your waistline might have far less to do with what passes your lips and almost everything to do with a sluggish, overburdened liver quietly falling behind on its daily chores. Your liver is the central processing hub for every gram of dietary fat you consume. When that hub operates at half speed, unprocessed fat begins stacking up, some of it seeping into the organ itself, the rest nestling firmly around your abdomen. The culprit often hides in plain sight, an underactive bile release mechanism that should be flushing and dismantling fat, but instead has slowed to a crawl. Bitterness, strange as it sounds, flips a biological master switch that wakes this entire system up. Today, I will walk you through a collection of actionable, everyday strategies, specific foods, strategic combinations, and effortless substitutions, all engineered around this exact bitter taste blueprint to help your liver rediscover its rhythm. Think of your liver as a two-piston engine dedicated to fat management. Its first major function is manufacturing bile, a substance that acts like a detergent, emulsifying the fats in your meal so your body can harness them for fuel instead of packing them into storage. Its second key function is acting as a meticulous bloodstream janitor, sweeping away metabolic debris left behind after digestion. Once you pass the half-century mark, the bile production line naturally decelerates, meaning fat breakdown loses efficiency almost imperceptibly at first. That is precisely why midsection padding can mysteriously thicken year after year, even when your eating habits haven't drastically shifted. The organ rarely sends out a blaring distress signal. People simply notice their waistbands digging in a little deeper, with no obvious dietary misstep to blame. This is precisely why bitterness represents far more than a curious flavor note. It functions as a biological ignition key that signals your liver to prime its machinery. Traditional eating patterns across numerous cultures recognized this intuitively. A sharp botanical aperitif before the main course, a side of peppery wild leaves, a drizzle of tart fermented liquid over greens. These generations lacked molecular diagrams of taste receptors in hepatic tissue, yet they observed the tangible digestive lift and codified the practice into daily ritual. The encouraging reality is this: your liver responds beautifully to modest, attainable daily moves, and you can initiate that support right now without overhauling your entire existence. We will begin with 5 standalone foods that uniquely bolster liver performance through this bitterness channel. For each entry, I will explain the mechanism of action, the simplest method of incorporation, and the personality type who stands to gain the most from it. Let us start with the inaugural food, arugula. Arugula sits among the most accessible peppery leafy greens you can toss into your cart at any standard supermarket, and its sharp, distinctive bite triggers a wave of bile secretion practically from the moment it touches your tongue. The gentlest entry point is modest. Scatter a generous handful of raw arugula into whatever salad you are already assembling, rather than attempting a complete dietary revolution overnight. This option particularly suits anyone who dreads complicated meal prep, since arugula demands zero cooking, zero chopping finesse, and goes straight from clamshell to plate. The second food, beets. Beets deliver unique pigments and compounds that, according to published research, enhance your liver's capacity to filter circulating blood and maintain steadier daily metabolic function. Aim to fold roughly half a cup of tender cooked beets into a salad or warm side 3 times across your week. Their earthy sweetness stays approachable and marries harmoniously with nearly any savory ingredient. Beets work especially well for individuals seeking a mellow-tasting entry point free from aggressive bitterness, while still delivering parallel liver-nourishing benefits. By the way, we are pushing toward 200,000 subscribers this month. If these insights resonate with you, tap subscribe. It takes barely a moment. Now, let us continue forward. The third food, mustard greens. Mustard greens belong squarely inside the cruciferous clan, loaded with distinctive plant chemicals and gut-friendly roughage that promote normal hepatic and digestive operations. This week, give them a brief steam bath. Gentle heat tames their pungency and renders them far simpler to weave into your standard evening rotation. This choice excels for those craving both that authentic bitter spark and a reassuring, familiar cabbage-like character without scouring specialty markets for obscure produce. The fourth food, chicory. Chicory ranks among the most instantly recognizable bitter leafy vegetables, and its taproot has a long history serving as a roasted coffee alternative, specifically because of its deep, inherent bitterness, which scientific literature associates with sustaining robust liver performance. Should the intensity feel jarring at first contact, begin by tucking a modest portion amid milder greens like baby spinach and slowly ratchet up the proportion over subsequent meals. This option perfectly suits palates already accustomed to the bracing notes of dark roast coffee or high-percentage cacao and unafraid of bold flavor profiles. I reserved the single most undervalued item on this entire roster for the final slot. The fifth food, grapefruit. Grapefruit harbors its signature bitterness, concentrated in the spongy white layer clinging just beneath the glossy outer rind. Resist the temptation to peel every trace of it away, because that discarded pith is precisely where most of the functional benefit resides, and nearly everyone strips it off without a second thought. Consume half a grapefruit as a morning starter or midday snack, while deliberately leaving wisps of that pale inner lining attached to the segments. A crucial caution must interrupt our discussion here. Grapefruit interferes with a substantial list of prescription drugs, including certain cholesterol-lowering statins, specific blood pressure regulators, and particular heartbeat rhythm medications, because it disrupts the enzymatic pathway your body uses to metabolize them. Should your regimen include any of these categories, confirm safety with your physician or pharmacist before introducing grapefruit to verify compatibility. This fruit fits beautifully for anyone who greets the day, preferring something crisp and bright over something heavy, and who has already secured medical clearance regarding their prescriptions. Hold these 5 items in your memory: arugula, beets, mustard greens, chicory, and grapefruit. They will form the structural base for the synergistic combinations we explore next. Now, we shift our attention to 5 food duos that outperform each solo ingredient, because particular compounds inside them magnify one another's effects. The first pairing, arugula and lemon. The bright acidity of fresh lemon juice gently tempers the peppery bite of arugula, making the greens more inviting bite after bite. Simultaneously, the vitamin C content helps your system extract a greater share of the beneficial phytonutrients locked inside the leaves. Tumble 2 packed cups of arugula with the extracted juice of half a lemon, a restrained pour of olive oil, and a pinch of salt. Then consume this before your midday or evening meal. Roughly a cup and a half makes a sufficient single portion. Work this into your routine twice or thrice weekly, and it will soon feel as automatic as any familiar side dish you have relied on for years. The second pairing, chicory and garlic. Garlic contributes its own roster of liver-supportive sulfur compounds, and when combined with the bitter greens, the two appear to reinforce each other, helping encourage more even bile output across the day's span. Gently wilt a bunch of chicory leaves alongside 2 minced garlic cloves in a modest slick of olive oil for approximately 3 minutes, just until the foliage relaxes. Offer this as a warm accompaniment to dinner 2 or 3 times per week. If the bitterness still registers too assertively, a finishing squeeze of lemon rounds the edges noticeably. The third pairing, mustard greens and lemon. Lemon softens the raw intensity of mustard greens while complementing their clean, faintly peppery character. The vitamin C from the citrus also partners neatly with the abundant phytonutrient package the greens supply. Lightly steam the mustard leaves for around 5 minutes, then finish them with the juice from half a lemon and a sparing amount of olive oil. This makes a lovely supporting player for your plate once or twice weekly and slots in especially well during a more leisurely weekend meal when you have an extra sliver of prep time. In a moment, I will reveal a combination most individuals have never thought to unite on a plate, despite it being among the most overlooked gems on this entire list. The fourth pairing, grapefruit and cinnamon. Cinnamon may assist your body in navigating post-meal blood sugar with greater smoothness, and sharp glucose surges are precisely the kind of metabolic jolt that nudges your liver towards storing surplus fat. Segment half a grapefruit, keep fragments of that white pith intact, and dust a whisper of cinnamon across the surface. This functions beautifully as a morning meal component or a mid-afternoon bridge snack, and half a fruit comfortably carries you until your next real meal. As I underscored earlier, if you handle prescription medicines, particularly those addressing blood pressure or lipid levels, consult your doctor beforehand to ensure grapefruit poses no interaction risk. The fifth pairing, endive and walnuts. Endive supplies the bitter foundation, while walnuts furnish wholesome fats, which aid your body's absorption of the fat-soluble beneficial compounds nestled specifically within bitter leafy vegetables. Chop one compact head of endive, introduce a palmful of walnuts, a tablespoon of olive oil, and a splash of lemon juice. This constructs an effortless lunch you can assemble the night prior and grab on the way out when mornings compress into chaos. Select just one of these 5 pairings this week and commit to preparing it on 3 separate days. You do not need to integrate all 5 simultaneously. Solidifying a single habit before stacking the next yields far stickier results. Let us proceed to 5 straightforward substitutions that also nourish liver performance while requiring nearly zero mental bandwidth, since you are merely trading one familiar staple for its smarter cousin. And the final one, in my observation, exerts a larger influence on real-world outcomes than all previous entries combined. The first swap: replace your usual sugar-laden iced tea with unsweetened green tea carrying a thin wheel of lemon. Green tea delivers catechins that researchers correlate with reduced hepatic fat accumulation over extended periods, and eliminating the added sugar instantly removes one of the most pervasive daily stressors placed upon your liver. Initiate this by swapping merely one sweetened beverage each day, and within a fortnight, you will likely stop craving the former syrupy taste. Most people who test this report exactly that outcome. The second swap: instead of white rice, reach for quinoa or wild rice. These grains digest at a more gradual pace and arrive with a fiber payload that milled white rice simply lacks, translating to diminished hepatic strain from sudden blood sugar excursions. This exchange proves especially valuable if you habitually encounter a post-lunch energy slump an hour or two after consuming a generous bowl of standard white rice. The third swap: rather than reaching for generic vegetable oil in your skillet, make olive oil your default cooking fat. Olive oil supplies monounsaturated fatty acids that, based on a wide body of evidence, reinforce liver health, whereas some industrially refined seed oils, in excess, may tug in the opposite direction. Station a bottle of olive oil directly adjacent to your stovetop so it becomes your automatic reach instead of an ingredient you must excavate from a crowded cupboard. The fourth swap: ditch packaged potato chips in favor of oven-crisped chickpeas. Chickpeas deliver a comparable audible crunch, but swap refined starch for fiber and plant protein. Toss drained, rinsed canned chickpeas with a little olive oil and your preferred spice blend, then roast at 400 degrees for roughly half an hour, jostling the tray midway. This switch works remarkably well for nightly TV snackers, since the satisfying texture holds up just as gratifyingly as the bagged stuff. The fifth swap: abandon creamy bottled salad dressing and whisk together a minimalist vinaigrette. Creamy dressings frequently carry the type of manufactured fats your liver works harder to process, whereas a vinaigrette built from olive oil and vinegar resurrects that same tart, bitter-sour flavor profile that jumpstarts bile flow. Rapidly blend 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, a dab of mustard, and a pinch of salt. Then refrigerate it for up to 7 days so it stands ready whenever your salad bowl calls. Here is a practical navigation tip you can deploy on your very next grocery run. Hunt for leafy greens that display deeper, more saturated coloration, since darker pigmentation often signals greater bitterness intensity and a generally richer payload of the beneficial compounds we have been discussing. Arugula, chicory, radicchio, and endive typically huddle together in the same refrigerated produce bay. Once your eyes learn their shapes, they become effortless to spot. Timing carries nearly as much weight as the ingredients themselves. Bitter edibles and beverages tend to exert their strongest effect roughly 15 to 20 minutes ahead of a meal, because that window gives your liver a preparatory head start before the incoming food freight arrives. If your mornings race by in a blur, simply relocate your bitter starter to the minutes just before your evening dinner instead. Steady repetition matters far more than nailing a specific clock hour. Here is another overlooked piece of the puzzle. Everything we covered today operates noticeably more effectively when paired with a modest walking habit. If I were forced to select a single physical movement pattern for liver vitality, it would be a plain 15 to 20-minute stroll following your evening meal. The mechanism is elegantly simple. Gentle movement helps your muscles siphon glucose from the bloodstream more efficiently, which lifts some of the metabolic weight off your liver and amplifies every other lever we have pulled today. No specialized gear required. A short loop around your neighborhood suffices to generate a tangible difference compounded across a few weeks. Consistent, restorative sleep plays an equally weighty role here, even though, at a surface glance, it appears entirely disconnected from food choices. When your sleep architecture fractures, your body tends to overproduce the stress hormone cortisol, and chronically elevated cortisol is tightly linked to preferential fat deposition, specifically encircling the midsection and infiltrating the liver itself. Aim to settle into bed around the identical hour each evening. It is a foundational step that props up every other strategy we have unpacked today. Let us weave the threads together. We examined the principle of bitterness and the unexpected presence of taste receptors residing in hepatic tissue. We detailed 5 foods that activate this switch: arugula, beets, mustard greens, chicory, and grapefruit. We mapped 5 pairings that amplify their collective impact and 5 effortless swaps for everyday staples. No mystical silver bullet exists here, and no solitary superfood or tonic will single-handedly erase abdominal fat overnight. But modest, steady adjustments like these, repeated day after day, create the conditions for your liver to operate nearer to its intended capacity. And that quiet, consistent restoration is typically where genuine, enduring bodily change actually originates. Do not attempt to layer in all 5 foods simultaneously. Choose one and weave it into your week. 7 days later, introduce a second. That sequencing allows the habit to cement itself rather than crumbling under the weight of too much transformation attempted too fast. Launch today with merely a single action from this video, whether that means bitter leaves in your next salad, one simple dinner swap, or a brief post-meal walk, and construct your new pattern outward from there, one deliberate step after another. If you have already experimented with anything resembling this approach, share your experience in the comments below. And if this material proved useful, tap the thumbs up so it surfaces for more people who might need it right now.